Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the April 23rd regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory, upon which we gather with gratitude. We have the consent agenda up first, Council. If we could move through the minutes of the public hearing held April 7th, 2025, the minutes of the council meeting held April 7th, 2025, the minutes of the special committee of the whole meeting held April 9th, 2025, and the approval of the council meeting agenda. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendations as noted? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any errors or omissions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Today, we have two delegations. Our first delegation we have is from Jay Stavroff regarding the Flying Phil St. Luke Memorial Project. An update to the city on the community initiative to memorialize Phil St. Luke. Jay, oh, there you are. Okay, thanks for coming on down. Okay. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. My name is Jenna Stavroff, and I hope you're all refreshed after a long weekend, after I'm sure what was an arduous budget season. I appear, as the Mayor said, before you today to update you on the initiative to recognize former Parksville resident Philip Allen St. Luke, as well as to ask that you consider a way to help permanently recognize his presence in our community. For those who may be newer to the community, and for others, I'll give a refreshing but hopefully brief summary so we can all understand why this warrants our time here today. Phil's story is complicated. As like any human, he was not perfect. What he was, though, was remarkable and memorable in this city. Standing at over 6.5 feet tall, but with the energy and personality of a 10-year-old boy, Phil became known of by almost everyone during his heyday, not only in this city, but the whole Mid-Island. He led Parksville's parades with his drum and was requested for parades in Nanaimo and Port Alberni. He was featured on Special Olympics posters province-wide and was a medal winner too many times to count in numerous sports, curling, bowling, and track and field being his favorites. He helped fundraisers by doing a walkathon to the North Island, dressed as Santa for photos at Christmas, and always helped the food bank and Parksville's fire department on their annual Fill the Boots campaign. He was a well-known and friendly face to the clients at the food bank and the SOS as he volunteered at both of those agencies regularly for decades. He had a soft spot for animals and helped build the original cages at the North Island Wildlife Recovery Center. He also walked to Deep Arrington in his younger years to muck the stalls at the Therapeutic Riding Association each morning because he considered them his friends. My favorite story of Phil came from a Special Olympics coach that I met during fundraising, who recounted Phil having finished a race at the provincials, then jogging back out onto the track to walk in and encourage the lone last place competitor who he did not know, but who was struggling to the finish line. For his many quirks and good works, he was featured many times in community newspapers, television, and given the name Mr. Parksville in 1981. As well, he had his birthday recognized by the city in 2008 as Flying Phil Day. He's been referred to as a domestic ambassador of goodwill, a friendly giant, a tonic for a bad day, and a Parksville landmark. When asked about the accolades and being a local celebrity for an interview, Phil's response was, "I just love Parksville." To many, though, he was just Flying Phil, someone who would give you a wave, 2 thumbs up, call you buddy if he didn't know you by name, and just wanted to be an accepted and encouraging friend. After Phil's death at the age of 71, the city graciously held a public celebration of life for Phil and took the unique step of creating a subcommittee to support the possibility of erecting a statue. I'd like to sincerely thank you for those actions. While the city understandably disbanded the subcommittee to focus resources elsewhere, two public members of the committee, that's myself and Doug Geibelhaus in the gallery, continued on with the intention to ensure that the public's will and Phil's memory were recognized by creating some kind of fitting memorial. Over an 18-month period, the Flying Phil Memorial Project, as we called ourselves, raised slightly more than $18,000 from numerous small individual donations, mainly at summer markets and local events. Considering the economic times, the significant community changes during COVID, and no corporate or professional involvement, we are proud of the amount raised. During our fundraising, we heard many stories of Phil and ideas, including to petition to rename the whole city Parks Phil, as seen here on this custom bumper sticker that one citizen made to help with our fundraising. When it became clear through community feedback that a statue was not the preferred or supported option due to the cost, the risk of vandalism or theft, and that Phil may have wanted his legacy to continue helping others, we pivoted. We brainstormed, and then we engaged the community through an online poll asking for their feedback on other options that now fit within the funds available. The poll included a custom carved bench, a piece of art, a mural series, or the naming of Parksville's boardwalk. To our surprise, the clear winner with 39% of the vote was a naming of the currently unnamed Seaside Boardwalk. I believe this is because the public yearns for a permanent and official recognition of Phil and the era that he represents. Unfortunately, the city has no naming policy for me to refer to or to help guide you. I will say that the city and area has many nods to interesting or colorful members from its past, whether it be the Tranfield Boys, who I believe have 3 streets named after them in the region, Rath Trevor, Foster Park, or the city's namesake, Postmaster Nelson Parks. Naming to recognize a person's contribution or impact goes back centuries. It is not only a tribute, but allows the everyday citizen to share in an ongoing commemoration. And importantly, it tells the unique identity and history of a community. I've researched naming policies in similar sized Canadian communities, and I sent you each those policies this past winter. Reviewing them, I see nothing that would preclude Phil St. Luke from being recognized if he had lived in those communities. As I am not here on behalf of myself or even Phil, but on behalf of the larger community who donated and voiced their preferences, I feel I must today request that you consider moving to name the downtown beach path between the Beach Club and Estuary St. Luke Boardwalk. As I understand, though, that that is a significant piece of infrastructure and that that decision may require deeper consideration than can be given at this time, I alternately request that if it seems more fitting, this city council move today to approve the naming of a park or trail with a nod to Mr. St. Luke. I specifically take note that in the park's master plan, there are a number of pocket parks that are apparently unnamed and a pathways plan to put connecting trails through and around Parksville that is currently active. I am here now because we would like to be able to offer to pay for a plaque or signage and a bench at a named area, and therefore come now before our funds have been allocated so that we could set some money aside. To date, we have paid the cost of Phil's headstone located beside his mother and grandmother at the historic St. Anne's Anglican Church. We've purchased a trophy for our local Special Olympics chapter to recognize an athlete annually who shows great sportsmanship, just like Phil. We provided seed money for a local documentary productions company to video interview community members about Phil's impact on their lives here in Oceanside. And most recently, we were able to partner to have a fence installed at Inclusion Parksville's Hearst Avenue location. This created a private back courtyard for their clients, some who are old friends of Phil's, to be able to do crafts, garden, or eat outdoors in a safe and secure environment. We still hope to make unique contributions that honor Phil to the Oceanside Food Bank and SPCA. In closing, Phil was a tireless volunteer in this region who raised funds and contributed his time to local charities and the community at large for over 40 years. He was also an accomplished Special Olympics athlete and an advocate for respectful treatment of people with developmental disabilities, as well as a lover of animals. Most importantly, despite his hardships and challenges, or maybe because of them, he tried his best to spread cheer, encourage, and help others. In his own words, his favorite hobby was, quote, anything that helped people. His positive persona and community contributions have been recognized time and again, and the public has supported celebrating his memory even when he was still alive. This City Council has the opportunity today to help close the story with a lasting and fitting recognition on behalf of the community that will cost nothing, is vandal-proof, and recognizes an entire era in Parksville's history that is cherished by many. I thank you for your time and your sincere consideration of this community request, and I would be happy to answer any questions the best I can. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your presentation and all the extra research that you did, through the archives and so forth to mention once again what a lot of us remember. But it was nice to have a refresher again, because Phil, as we say, was larger than life. And so that was much appreciated. As you noted, you looking at naming policies and so forth, we have guidelines here at the City of Parksville that we follow here. And I have a prepared statement here I must read anyways. So, while naming public assets after individuals may seem like an honorable gesture or appropriate way to memorialize someone, there are significant complications and concerns regarding this practice. Public spaces belong to everyone, not simply to one person's legacy. Naming an asset after one individual may unintentionally exclude or alienate segments of the population. Using neutral names that reflect the broader community fosters unity and inclusivity. Although it may seem innocuous and supported by the community, in this particular case, naming of a public asset after an individual sets a potentially dangerous precedent. I wish to stress this is not a personal concern regarding Phil St. Luke, not at all in any which way, but rather an issue with broader implications extending well beyond this particular request. People, no matter how celebrated or special to a community, are complex, and their reputation or actions can become controversial. History has demonstrated that the actions of someone widely admired today may be questioned or even condemned down the road. Renaming assets due to scandal or new information regarding an individual is not only costly, but divisive to the community. Public assets should remain neutral and free from personal bias or favoritism. From a practical perspective, public spaces can and should be defined by their function, purpose, or geographical location rather than personal recognition. A descriptive name such as community park allows people to identify its use rather than focus on an individual's legacy, and ensures asset names remain continuous and relevant for generations. Public assets should ultimately be symbols of community inclusion. By avoiding the practice of naming them after individuals, we ensure they remain timeless, free from controversy, and accessible to all. The city offers a memorial tree and bench program that you have mentioned, and I recognize that and I appreciate that provides an opportunity to honor and memorialize individuals on city property. I would suggest that this would be an appropriate way to honor Phil St. Luke's legacy. You've mentioned that you have a balance left over after your very wise decision and appreciative decision to provide the grave marker for Phil. And I think at this particular time, if you use that and now to do what we have advised other people that felt that their individuals or they know of an individual in our community was special, and of course they are. But I also recognize we're all special. Everyone is special. And there are many in our community that have preceded Phil and many that will follow Phil as well. Maybe in a different form and so forth. But in this particular case, I think it would be very appropriate. We, as a city, recognized Phil with the recognition ceremony, as you mentioned. Anyways, that was well attended and well appreciated by many of those that wanted to attend, could attend it by all means. And so that happened. But at the same time, for a legacy to be to memorialize this individual, the plaque and the tree to me would be the greatest way of doing that, and staying within the guidelines of pretty well what we've told other individuals that have had similar requests to us, and other individuals in the future that will have similar requests to us as well. So I'm afraid that that is the guidelines that we stick to. It's unfortunate that society reflects back on individuals 100 years after their passing, perhaps, and identify something that was not proper in today's standards, and then they demand that things, statues get removed and so forth. And that's very sad that this happens in this form, but that is the society that we live in now. And that's what we have to live with in the city of Parksville. So instead of creating more division in the community, I think it's best that we remember Phil in a very good way, and avoid any naysayers and so forth, condemning this and actually be unbecoming to Phil's legacy. So, and that would happen. I can guarantee you it just does. And it's unfortunately it happens that way now. So as much as I appreciate your suggestion, and I was one of Phil's Special Olympics coaches, I took him down to Operation Track Shoes a couple of times in Victoria. So I know Phil very well, and I know him and the athletes. I also know the other athletes who were on the team too, that were equally as special as Phil. So I do appreciate the effort you've done. And I think in this particular case, as far as City of Parksville participation, I think that is the best that we offer, is to do what we offer to other individuals that have made a difference in our community, like Phil has. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it open to the council members. Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for your presentation. Also, I learned an awful lot of Phil and knew him, but I learned more. And I have an idea that might be kind of exciting for you. It's to do with education. And your special O group could have an endowed scholarship. We have 5 in our family. My late mother, who passed away, she's from here, over $100,000 at UBC, and it's endowed. So every year there's a presentation to a student. So I'm thinking, wouldn't that be wonderful for Special O? Because we have a son in Special O in Victoria. And I know that they're very involved in sport. And rate local could be only designated locally, but just an idea if you want to know more about scholarships, endowed scholarships, so the money can grow. You can have people donate. Like in our family's case, lots of people donated. It's still alive. It's on a website and it grows all the time. And that's just an idea. So, but thank you, because this is a big deal, and I understand. So thank you for your help. Thank you.
And Councilor Gore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Stavroff, for all the work that you've done on this project, and also coming before us. I really respect your enthusiasm and all the work that you've been involved in recognizing Phil. Speaking for myself, I moved to Parksville in 2015, but it did not take me long to recognize Phil and befriend Phil. That's who he was, a very friendly individual. I anticipate there's a motion coming forward specific to your request, and I will save my comments regarding this request to that motion. Thank you.
Councilor Fries.
Thank you, through the mayor, to our delegation. Jenna, first, I just want to say thank you for the incredible amount of work that you've done on this. I know it's been, like you mentioned, 18 months. It's been a long time. And I think it's been wonderful for the community to have this time to be able to reflect and remember Phil as well, because he's been such a special part of Parksville. And it's so easy to forget after time goes on and as our lives, all the turmoil that goes on in the world. But one thing that Phil brought to us is a huge sense of community. And I saw it all the time when he'd walk with us during the food drives with the fire department and going door to door. And he made people more neighborly. And I think he was a role model as to what that sense of community is. And so when I hear you tell the story about how he connected and volunteered and embraced so much of the community, that's what it brings up to me, is to remind people of what it means to be a good neighbor, how to spread that goodwill, give people a wave instead of just passing by them. It's, giving that smile and saying hello and how's your day? And the countless businesses I see him pop into, and I'm having a coffee or having lunch and just around. So I think what the community is asking for when they ask about that, having a walkway named after him or something to remember it, I don't think it's just about honoring Phil St. Luke, but it's about being able to have that connection, that neighborly connection. And that's what I see as people more trying to honor. And while the mayor raises some points on, guidelines and how that, the kind of culture these days are about trying to less about individuals, but more about the purpose of things. Flying Phil, to me, it strikes that purpose. It's as I mentioned about that community there. But where I don't think council should be misled is that it's not one individual's decision of how things get named or what we do in Parksville. It's the council's decision at council's will. And since there isn't a policy to guide it or limit it, it is up to the members here to decide if they think it's appropriate or if it's risky, or if it's something that we go down that path, are we going to get in trouble or have to change later on. But as Jenna pointed out, I think that even in communities where they have strict policies about naming policies, this would it would fit right in perfectly with those kind of policies as well. And I don't see the risk in naming something. This has been a request coming from the community. So I did draft up a motion that I think is appropriate for us to put forward to consider. And then from there, we can talk about the ifs and whats and so on. But I did kind of want to leave it open to discuss and hear people's thoughts more before I bring the motion forward. I just want to remind you that it is council's decision of what we do.
Councilor Gretz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To our delegation, Jenna, echo all the comments here. Really appreciate the work that you and Doug and the rest of the team did. And, seeing you out there on different public events there with the table was so great to see, and really not for any personal gain of any kind, but just to spread the simplicity of what Phil brought to this community, which is community spirit and friendliness and being a community. So I do want to recognize that and all the work, and look forward to the discussion around how to approach your ask. And I'd love to see your what you wrote for the presentation today get published somewhere as well, because I think it's a great summary of Phil and his legacy. And like you said, it is the end of an era, but I hope that we can move into the new era in this community in a way that brings forward all the best of what Phil brought to the community, so that we can keep that going, even though Phil isn't here to perpetuate to move it forward himself. So thank you again.
Councilor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to the delegation. I want to echo the thanks, Jenna, for all that you've done, and to Doug, who's here as well. I really appreciate all the work that you've done and all the information that you've gathered and from the community as well. I do appreciate, as our mayor said, that there are, concerns in communities all over the place about naming but at the same time, I wouldn't want us to be so risk adverse that we end up with a colorless community. So I think there needs to be a balance there. It needs to be a thoughtful balance. And I do hope that we can find some way to recognize that the spirit that Phil did bring to our community. Other communities might have well-known celebrities. Well, Phil was our celebrity, and certainly the walking. Everyone saw him and brought a smile. And I know that he ruffled a few feathers, there's no doubt, along the way. But at the same time, he brought great joy to many people, and he was certainly well-known across the community. So I do look forward to hearing. I understand that there's a motion that may be coming forward later, and we'll have some discussion at that time. So thank you.
Councilor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor, through yourself to Jenna. Just on your presentation itself today was amazing. Over the past couple of years, I've listened to a lot of delegations, and that was in top 10 for sure. You know, if we're not going to, I guess if we're going to wait for perfection to recognize people, we're not going to be recognizing anyone. You know, I think there has to be risks in every decision we make, and we have to balance those risks with the goal. And so I'll just leave my comments at that. Thanks again for your amazing presentation, Jenna.
Councillor Franz.
Thank you. Then, seeing everyone's had a chance to speak, then I'll put this motion forward here.
I haven't. I was waiting for everyone else to speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry if I could, Councillor Franz, I just, make mention. Yeah. Yes, you're as soon as I finish here, I'll get your motion. The other comment I have, Council, my own personal comments, is the fact that it sets a dangerous precedent. Because there are others in the past that we have been advised anyways that have passed on as well and have been very important community members to ours in their own way, their contributions that they've made. And I'm not going to get into names and so forth, and we have said basically the same to those individuals that wanted something, a public space or a street or a path named after them. And we said, we can't, because the thing is, where does it stop? Where do we decide what's deserving of being named and not? I don't think we have the capacity to do that, that any one of us is more equal than the other. So it sets a very dangerous precedent. We all here at the table love Phil, all did not love Phil. And I can say that there are individuals that have contacted me, of course, confidentially, because I'm the mayor and I'm the lightning rod. And they say this is a bad idea. This was way back when we first struck the committee and so forth. I even had some comments about it was inappropriate for us to have the ceremony down in the park, which was very hurtful to me because I felt that Phil was a friend of mine. But at the same time, I have to respect everybody's own personal beliefs. And I don't want that to carry forth onto Phil. Phil does have a legacy, and we all carry that legacy, and we all carry it right here. And anybody that's in Parksville, they know Phil. We all have the legacy here and in here. And so I believe it's fitting. And I think what is also fitting is the legacy that we believed in Phil so much was how Phil was accepted by the community, welcomed into our community, and welcomed into the shops of everybody that he used to visit on a regular basis. And we accepted Phil for all his perfections and imperfections. We accepted him for what he was. And so that legacy, I know Phil was well loved in this community, and he felt that, and he expressed that many times to us about how much, as you say, he loved Parksville, and that's why. And that's why many people that in our community of Parksville feel very special in Parksville, because Parksville is known for its inclusivity, and the diverse abilities are very strong and appreciated and well received in this community. But at the same time, there's other people that contribute in far other ways to our community, and I won't get into the other people that have, but I can tell you that those same people have plaques that I can still visit in the community park anytime I want, and I see them now. And I still appreciate that. But at the same time, this to me is just going down a bad road. I don't want to mention John A. McDonald, but I have to. All the controversy that caused, with the statue coming down in Victoria, it was just a horror show. And now it's resurfaced once again. It's become a divisive decision in the community of Victoria. And I don't want that. I think Phil went out on a good note, and we give him a good send off down at the park. And I believe that the plaques and so forth and his grave marker is a very good indication of the respect and love we had for Phil. But I think we have to leave it at that, because really there are others that are equally deserving of respect and love in our community and have already passed in that sense. And I believe it's unfair that we didn't commemorate them in any naming as well. So that's just my feeling. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Ms. Stavroff. A question for you through the mayor. In your interactions with the public and all your work that you've done on this, what has been your sense, what people want other than a city park, a trail? You think a mural, a bench, a plaque? Do you think that would satisfy the committee, the folks that you've been working with, or this is an ask that you think is more appropriate rather than just those plaques or a bench?
Through the chair to Councillor Gar, I believe that what we have certainly heard is that people want something bigger than the everyday. I've been pressured and called out for not, raising $80,000 for a statue. People have certainly called on me to say, like, where is this giant public memorial that Phil deserves? So on the flip side, I am certainly, I get private messages into my Facebook and emails saying, when is this going to happen? Where is the public recognition of Phil? Where is the grand gesture that the community is kind of asking for to recognize him? And I think part of that, if I may continue, is that many people in the community felt like family to Phil, and Phil treated them like family. And in his last days, because of COVID, as well as because of the responsible decisions of his caretakers, the general public never got to say goodbye. And so while the celebration at the beach was fantastic and was an outstanding and very much appreciated gift from the city, there's a still kind of, I guess, open or unresolved desire from the community who has lived in this area for 30, 40 years to see something to put kind of to gain some closure. And I think like the naming of a park or a piece of pathway is would just satisfy those who I hear from who are very supportive of doing something for Phil's legacy. I hope that answers your question.
You good?
Just a quick, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. So, no, just a pollen. Thank you. I appreciate that. I agree. I think the people that I've spoken to, they definitely want something in recognition. Personally, I haven't specifically talked. People haven't specifically told me that they would like a park or a trail, but if that's the wish, and we'll see what the council thinks, I'm looking forward to the debate. Thank you.
Everyone's spoken that needs to speak before the press.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
I have a motion here prepared, and just to remind council, the reason why I'm bringing this motion forward is when this did start off 18 months ago, it was a statue that this council was committed to providing a space for on contingent that there was no money coming from council, that was all raised from the community. And so since that became more expensive than anticipated in the fundraising efforts and logistics of it, that's why a statue wasn't pursued, but nevertheless still looking to pursue an alternative. So that's where I think this is a fitting thing. The recommendation here is that staff be directed to identify an unnamed city park, trail, or pathway that can and will be named and branded as Flying Phil Way or Park respectively in honor of Phil St. Luke, but also in recognition of the inclusive response of Parksville residents in welcoming people of all abilities as valued members of our community.
Seconded by Councillor Gore. Councillor Fraz, your motion.
Right, so I think I just kind of spoke to that just a moment ago as to where this is coming from and why. Just want to reiterate the fact that the Flying Phil portion of it is not so much about the individual, but that sense of community. It's that we all bring a part of this to it. It's that we can all follow in those footsteps and be somebody to, like I say, you sit down at a park and say hello to that person beside you instead of just eating your lunch and, maybe giving them a nod, but interacting with them as we, make it a welcoming place. And that's what I think is evoked by remembering Flying Phil.
Councillor Brent, go ahead.
I'm hoping that we can maybe refer this discussion and the motion to the end of the agenda. So we don't necessarily have the delegation having to sit here. assuming we're done asking questions of the delegation.
This is a motion off the floor, so, yeah. Yeah, it's motion off the floor, which is acceptable, even with the delegation is here. Councillor Fraz, are you okay with right now?
Yeah, I'd prefer to keep it now too, because as I mentioned to the mayor, depending on how long this meeting goes tonight, I might have to duck out before the end of it, so.
And Councillor Fraz did identify that he has another appointment anyways that has to follow, so there's no guarantee. So I think it best that we bring to conclusion at this.
Is there a staff report on this?
We don't have a staff report other than the fact that they assisted me in preparing my prepared statement that I read. And that was the staff report, it basically advising what the ramifications of such a naming policy would be. And so that's what we have to deal with right now. Yeah, so that's it. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we have a full, are we going to be able to have a discussion anymore, or we just got to vote yes or no?
Well, this is the discussion. It's on the floor.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. So any debate or discussion should happen right now.
I have, I'm dating myself, but there's a Flying Phil who was yes, he was a cabinet minister. And so you've got to check and see if there's a Flying Phil way up by SFU. I think I've been on that street. It's just, I'm not against this. I'm supportive. I'm also wanting to see if this team of people that have worked so hard on this might look at a scholarship one day, because that is another living thing that can go on, an endowed scholarship. So that's another idea. But this, I was just thinking myself, I knew him, I met him. So that's just, this is another generation. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm not trying to put a kibosh to the name, but
Yes.
yeah, it's something. Anyway, yeah.
And thank you for that. And we're dating ourselves here, Sylvia, because I too remember. Sorry, Councillor Martin. It was referred to as it was Flying Phil Ghilardi, and he was a politician. So I would maybe be careful about using Flying Phil, because not all politicians are, regarded, in a high fashion. I don't know any at the table here, but I certainly know others. There was controversy around the individual, I can assure you. And if you look back in the history books, it's not that far ago, right, Sylvia? It's not that far ago. It was definitely, and I believe, yeah, it was something to do with his expenses and flying and so forth like that. And so it wasn't a pleasant name.
No.
So just be careful of that. You might want to research that before you or Phil St. Luke, is definitely, but put the Flying Phil into it. You may be identifying with an individual you don't want to be identified with. Just say it.
Mayor, he was labor minister and he cut lots of tickets driving a car. That's why he did that. So he was the highways minister or something. Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
And he got tickets for driving too fast all the time. Anyway.
Phil St. Luke did not drive. Councillor Beal.
Thank you. Let's get back to the motion here. Thank you very much. If I may say, and particularly to Councillor Fraz, who brought this motion forward, I'm quite attracted to the notion that there might be a section of a pathway that was Phil's Walk or something. It's something that could be done in such a way that it might be in fact timeless, but for those of us who knew to Phil would know what the reference was, right? Because for me, Phil was about walking and about, reaching out to people. My question though, if I may, to Councillor Fraz, it is written in a very specific way, but would there be any objection if in fact staff came back with some minor suggestions for some minor alterations? Do we see this as written in stone, or in fact getting some direction from staff as to some possibilities that might work that would both address potential risks as well as allow us to do something that would honor our celebrity?
And that comes to mind as well. If we're talking about naming it, is it a question of we're putting up a billboard, we're putting up a street sign, or we're painting, or we're putting a plaque on the pathway or on the street. a street naming is more complex. I can guarantee you that. Yeah, that's a whole different way, but naming a pathway or something area would maybe less proper. But I'm going to go right now to staff
can I
anyways,
answer?
if to answer the question. CAO Kaler, could you maybe describe possibly the implications of what would happen to achieve the goal here of Councillor Frass's motion?
Thanks, if I may. So what I understand from the motion is that it's not including a street. I may be misreading that, but the way I'm reading it, it was a city park, trail, or pathway. And so if this passes today, what staff would typically do in that situation is identify something that is not named and prepare a sign and do a news release that this particular strip or pathway or trail has been named, and then the sign would remain. That's pretty much without further direction what I would interpret this to mean. And I believe in conversations that we're looking at about a year timeframe as well, which might be helpful to get direction from council on priority as well if we are moving forward with this.
For me?
You go ahead, Councillor Frass.
Yeah, so through the mayor to Councillor Beal and rest of council, I did try to actually have it where it was left to have some of staff's input there. So it was to turning it over to them so they could find the most, appropriate and kind of then bring it forward in that regards, recognizing those kind of issues that their mayor had mentioned. I know staff has some, how do I say, kind of, concerns or thoughts around it. So I want it to be where they could have that kind of input and flexibility of it. So it's not specifying that it has to be, a park. It can be a trail or pathway or so on. And then they can kind of tell us as to what they came up with and what might best suit them. I think it would be appropriate for them to perhaps be working with Jenna and Doug just as far as if there's going to be funds there for having the, if there's a plaque to be installed or if there's a bench to be going up in that spot there too, then that's what that fund's for. And then I mentioned with Kiva previous to the meeting here that I thought a year timeline would be appropriate for a couple of reasons. Both, it's already been 18 months. I think another year, perhaps before Phil's next birthday. Or his memorial of his birthday, and before the end of our council term, I think would be appropriate time, and also give them, not put them under the crunch to try to get something done. I don't see this being something that would take a long time, but I try to give it where there is that bit of flexibility. So at this point, then we could kind of hands off and say something will be done in this kind of a manner, and have staff use their best, best thoughts towards it.
Dan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that and for staff, because I just didn't want it to read that it's very, very limited, like, as opposed to possibilities of, and I will say right now, I probably wouldn't be in favor of a park because again, that is such a permanent thing, but to look at something that would be a nod to the celebrity that we knew and loved. And I knew him back in Arrington.
Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Frass, for bringing the motion forward. And I appreciate the background as well on that. So I'm very much in support of this concept in principle, especially understanding the conversation here. I think what we're trying to do here is recognize what it is that he meant to the community and what he brought to the community, not him as some perfect in every way individual who's that. But we do want to emphasize and reinforce certain values in our community. And I think this is a great way to do that. And it may be that an option would be to do something in the community park. There are a number of paths in there. It could be great to have some thumbs along the path or, positive words that are associated with Phil. So it's not necessarily just about his name, but also about the values that he spread in the community that we want to celebrate. So I think there's enough flexibility in the motion for staff to bring forward ideas like that. And that wouldn't necessarily create any precedents that I would be uncomfortable with.
CAO Kaler, go ahead.
Thank you. If I may, through the mayor, I just have a question about process wise then, because the way the motion is reading to me, we wouldn't be coming back to council. we would just be doing this. So I'll just request some clarification when the motion is passed, if it passes, whether that's, we go ahead and do it, or do we come back to council with what we think we want to do?
Back to council. Yeah, you already have to. Yeah.
I guess we can leave that up to council to decide here. My kind of intention too is that we would be able to just more hands off it and kind of be satisfied with, you know, trusting them to pick what's most appropriate to make it as easy. And I think a lot of times already being committed, we've looked at a lot of different things. But if council felt they wanted to take a look and to maybe make a fine tuning adjustment in there, that's fine as well.
Yeah,
I just thought it for simplicity I trust the staff to be able to identify and name it.
That's the way I'm leaning in this particular case, Councillor Frass. I think it would be more applicable because in your motion, it says right in the city park, and we've recognized that maybe is not a good idea. Yeah, or trail. Yeah. So if we can review the motion itself anyway, is to be more flexible, to get a staff report on coming up with something that can be commemorated in a way that they can be done quickly, you know, like quicker than if it's something like a whole renaming project, something like that. Is that what we need in this case, Kayla?
If I may, through the mayor, I'm not sure what direction you want to go, but if council wants staff to come back, then we would have to amend the motion, I think, just to clarify that instead of just saying staff be directed to identify and do the naming, that it would essentially just change the beginning of that motion to say that staff be directed to present recommendations to council that identify an unnamed city park trail, blah, 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 all the rest of it. And we would then come back to you with options of where that location may be. And I think just the way the motion is worded right now, we're just doing it.
Right.
Council's telling us to just go ahead and staff would choose, as Councillor Fraz had mentioned. So depending on what your intent is as a council, I think we either go with the motion as it is, if that's what you want, and amend it slightly that we come back to you before going ahead and putting the plaque out somewhere, if that's what you want.
I think the staff recommendations is probably a good way to go at this particular time. If council approves to provide direction to staff to come up with staff recommendations as a naming or identification for Phil, would that meet your?
So you're saying for them to come back to us so that we would then choose out of their list, a short list of them?
Yeah, well, I think that's maybe appropriate anyways, because maybe, you know, if it's like, you know, naming a garbage can after it, maybe
Yeah,
we might
no,
not be happy. So
My only concern,
I'm just saying, you know, like whatever.
the
you
only
know, like,
concern with that is I'm trying to
I would like some input there as to whether it's appropriate.
I was just trying to limit the amount of staff time that we would consume and the speed of this. Unless they're like, I'll ask Jenna if she thinks there's any objection to like, would there be, is there a more desirable or favorable, or is it, you know, or is there a particular area that was in mind? Because I kind of trusted to staff, like if they're balancing off their concerns with the community too, then I don't want to have to be micromanaging that afterwards as well. I think we put it in their court. We told them what we were looking for and the whys and what we're needing. I think they're going to do the best job they can to balance it out and come up with the best solution. So.
And I have a question for Jenna. Would you be, regardless of this naming issue, would you be regardless? Are you still considering using your balance of funds anyways for a bench and a tree? Are you still considering doing that? Did I hear that, or is that in place of this? I'm not sure.
Through your worship, I'll first address, I believe there was a question there from Councillor Fraz, which was, did we have a particular idea? And again, to limit staff's time, I had noticed in the Parks Master Plan that there are a number of small green spaces called pocket parks, which it claims are unnamed and unmarked, which actually creates a safety issue. So if it were me, I would say, you know, the pocket park that is unnamed and closest to downtown so that it can really narrow it would be something that I would consider, or had kind of thought, okay, how would this be narrowed down? I by no means am an expert on the city's infrastructure and plans. I know there's a transportation master plan and there's a parks plan and there's all sorts of things going on. So I would believe that staff might be the most neutral and best to decide or come up with a short list. We do and always have had in our budget to the mayor, the idea of doing a bench if a custom kind of art bench wasn't the preferred option in the poll. So we did look at that at one point, is doing some kind of really fancy carved,
I saw that.
signature bench. That was not what people called for. However, because of the reasonable cost and involvement with the city of doing a memorial bench, we do have that as part of the budget, but would of course want to put that somewhere in conjunction with the city if there was an honoring, which we believe is the real request from the heart of the community. I hope that answers you. And I'm not sure when I'm allowed to like speak or not.
You're
but there-
answering my question, so go ahead.
Okay, there were two issues that came forward, and if I may, through your worship, mention that when I was preparing for this and months ago, I was looking for some kind of official policy or guidelines. And so it not having a naming policy like other communities do, it left it it was significantly difficult to try to craft something that would be easy for council as well as easy for staff. So a lack of information was actually more difficult than having something. And I would point out that in the future, a naming policy can also be can generate revenue for small cities by creating opportunities for corporate naming and other such things. So it might be worthwhile. The other issue I heard was regarding, the idea of skeletons coming out of the closet and having that being a concern. And as I noted, Phil was not a perfect person, and none of us are. Being out in the community and hearing numerous stories, the good and the bad, I think I have a fairly well-rounded idea of how Phil was received in the community and any difficulties that he had. And I would only note that for staff or for those concerned that those historic concerns were, known and discussed before the city created, Flying Phil Day and numerous other accolades, and that no one has ever come forward with any kind of issues. And so I wouldn't believe that that would be a concern now that he has passed. There were, numerous decades and opportunities for if somebody wanted to raise concerns. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. Thank you.
I'm just trying to think as Councilor Frass says, try and keep it simple. What I'm thinking on the fly here, we have a new trail going from Nervous Lane down to Shelley that is currently under construction and study, but it's an approved project that leads right off the community park. We don't have any, is that something that could possibly do as a trail, Kiva? Could we put a plaque or something at the start of the trail or?
If I may, to you, through you, that's a partnership. We don't own that property. And there are partnerships with First Nations and the Nature Trust.
All
and
right,
we've been
okay.
talking about reconciliation and recognition for some slightly different objectives in that area. But we do have many other trails that I think, I believe staff, most of our staff actually know Phil also and have been in the community for a very long time. And it would be our normal process to reach out to the residents that have participated, and we consult with stakeholders all the time. And so I'm not concerned if council does think we can just go ahead and do it.
Right.
It's really council's preference of how involved you want to be in choosing that location.
I think the best what we do is we're just going to leave it. I'm going to go back. We'll leave it to staff recommendations. And I think that's the best way to handle it. We'll wait for a staff report for recommendations on what would be the most doable, feasible. Are you okay with that? You're saying to leave it with that?
I think staff's capable of taking this through the finish line from
Are
here.
you okay with that, C.A.O. Kaler? We'll trust you.
If the majority of council wishes that, I am fine with that. We defer to
Okay,
you.
so that's what the motion is going to read. Go ahead, Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I too actually would support leaving it with staff, but picking up on something that Councillor Gren said earlier, he did mention there's some pathways. I believe there are some pathways going into the community park with the repositioning of the beach, sand sculpture, et cetera. I do hope that ultimately there is something that is close to an area, as you say, close to downtown, an area that many people will go and will be walking. So thank you.
Okay, I think that's good. In order to get you out of here, I'm going to call the question on the revised motion that you all have in your head. Oh, the same motion, only with the understanding that staff are going to put forth recommendations and make it happen. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. That was easy.
May I say thank you sincerely for your time, which I know is precious, and I'm probably going to tear up. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good discussion, council. I thank you. We have. Sorry to keep you waiting. You could have brought food. We have another delegation today from Extreme Eatery regarding an application to facilitate street patio eatery on Morison Avenue. A presentation by Uri. I'm going to do this. Kamakas regarding the application to facilitate an Extreme Eatery street patio on Morison Avenue. And Keeman's in the audience here too. And anyone's familiar with the Extreme Eatery on Morison is familiar with Keeman and his food trucks he had in the past and those incredible burgers. Thanks for being here today. Aura, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and staff. We want to present today with the idea of changing the outlook of how Parksville grows the same way other communities have grown post-COVID. During COVID, the province of BC made it very possible for businesses to survive by allowing an outdoor seating area. In the community of Parksville, only 2 businesses took forward with that motion, and that was Extreme Eatery as well as Aerosmith Brewing. The difference is that Aerosmith Brewing owns part of the land that they're on, so their situation is slightly different. Throughout the time of June, July 2020, Extreme Eatery has been paying for private security that takes care of our community area. Every night we have built the patio, we then enclosed the patio, we then further added a canopy over it, security gates, just all in all, and to make it a safe place during the day, but as well so it wasn't becoming a nuisance in the evenings, which there was some concern in the area that it is in. Over the last 5 years, we have been very fortunate to be able to increase our hiring of local staff in the summer months by about 40%. Unfortunately, with the delay of getting to the point that we're at right now, we have not been able to increase the 2025 staffing to those numbers. And we're about the 18%, which we are hoping to change very quickly. The patio area has become synonymous with the crazy Caesars as well as vacationers come and book their holidays. If you speak to the staff at the beach club, they will tell you that their guests book their reservations for the upper patio for their groups, and then they book their stays at the beach club. There isn't a lot of space in the eatery. There are 6 tables, 14 to 16 seats. The outdoor patio sees an increase of our revenue about 60% in the summertime. In the summertime from late spring break into the September long weekend. But it also increases the foot traffic to that area and increases the revenue to all of the other neighboring shops that are currently there. Many times you will see people waiting in line an hour who go and do their shopping and then come and have lunch. Our goal is that we will be able to keep the patio, move to adding the liquor license there. We have already been in touch with the liquor board. They are ready to stamp off of it. We have far surpassed any requirements, particularly with the security gate, and never had any licensing infractions or concerns. Our staff is very well trained. And we feel that if we can use this as a stepping stone, it will be a great asset to the community with bringing some other restaurants on and showcasing what we have to offer as a community, and bringing more tourists and guests here.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm pretty excited about this, being all about a strategic plan included vitality of our downtown. And this checks off one very large box on that strategic plan. And I'm thankful for that it's been studied anyways. And council, for further on, we have a report from Director of Planning anyways, is going to give us a report on this as well. But while Ura's here, any questions for the delegation? Go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for giving us a little bit of background on this. I want to thank you and your partner for bringing this to our downtown. It definitely does add vitality. Since I live on the street, I do see a lot of foot traffic going towards where the outdoor patio is. My question to you is, other communities like Victoria, they have outdoor patio bylaw. Is that something you anticipate or envision that downtown Parksville could look at in the future? And second, since it's on a public space, are those typically just exclusive for your business use, or are those shared with perhaps the next door restaurant who's there?
To the mayor, and then to answer the councillor's questions. I would anticipate that there will be some bylaws or changes that would have to come forward. If we use Victoria, they've done an amazing job. I mean, all of those locations along that street that is now closed, probably I would say maybe a 30% increase in revenue to those businesses by keeping guests there. It also forces the neighboring restaurants to really step up their game. In all industry, if one business is doing well and the next business is doing well, you're going to want to do better. So as every restaurant or every merchant on a street is there, you're going to be open a few extra hours. You're going to give back to the community. You're going to hire more staff. So it is a win-win. Traditionally, the patios, when there is alcohol served, cannot be used as a joint venture unless you have a joint liquor license. The Liquor and Compliance Board will determine the usage of the patio space and who can use it. So that's why there's gates on it, so that our staff is trained to use it. If there was another business, which there is another restaurant across the way, if they wanted to put a patio out, then they would have to have their own with compliance with the liquor board.
Thanks, sir. And to the councillor's question, you can post the same questions to Mr. Russell, point 3 in the reports. Yeah, because it's can be handled by a temporary use permit. So that's the direction we'll probably be going on it. But Blaine will explain that later. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Any other questions for our delegation while they're here? Go ahead, Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to the delegation. I just really like to thank you for the presentation. It's very articulate and very informative. And I look forward to the point in the agenda when recommendations are coming forward from staff, and we will be able to vote on those at that time. And I do appreciate the life and vitality, as the mayor mentioned, that outdoor eating brings to a street and to community. So thank you for taking advantage of that when it was available.
Any other questions for the delegation while we're here? Seeing none. Thanks so much, Ura. Yeah. You didn't use your entire allotted time. You have at least a minute. Go ahead.
The one point that we have is if, I know that this is a new process, but if there's any way we can expedite it so that we don't lose the May long weekend, since we've already lost spring break and the Easter weekend. And I know that's bigger than my control part, but that's my only request.
I can't speak for staff at this time, but I can advise that if we can make it happen, we will make it happen fast. Yes. Good. Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, council. Under reports, the first report on the agenda is Committee of the Whole recommendations from the April 9th Committee of the Whole meetings regarding the, I'm gonna just have to read this out because I'm pretty excited about this report. Do I have a mover or seconder for the first of three recommendations? One, that staff reduce the property tax revenue increase from 7% to 5.5% in the amended 2025-2029 financial plan and prepare the 2025 property tax rates bylaw to reflect that increase. And point two, that staff incorporate the changes proposed for the general fund presented in summary by staff at the April 9th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting into the general fund 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw. Do I have anyone that wants to move that? Councillor Wood, really? Councillor Grens would be seconding that. Any discussion? Tax decreases are always welcomed. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you, council. And thank you for all the staff that actually made this happen. They had to put a lot of work into getting those numbers down even further. So my appreciation to all of our financial staff. Thank you. Reports, point three, Committee of the Whole for the recommendations from the April 9th CO Committee of the Whole meeting. Do I have a mover or a seconder for the second recommendation? That staff maintain the water rates increase at 6% in the amended 2025 to 2029 water fund financial plan and prepare the amended water utility rates bylaw to reflect that increase. Point two, that staff incorporate the changes proposed for the water utility fund presented in summary by staff at the April 9th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting into the water utility fund 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw. Do I have a mover? I'm going to go to Councillor Martin and seconded by Councillor Gore. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Next one on the reports. Committee of the Whole recommendations from the April 9th Committee of the Whole meeting. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation? That staff maintain the sanitary sewer rates increase at 6% in the amended 2025 to 2029 sanitary sewer fund financial plan and prepare the amended sanitary sewer rates bylaw to reflect that increase, and that staff incorporate the changes proposed for the sanitary sewer fund presented a summary by staff at the April 9th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting into the sanitary sewer fund 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw. Mover or seconder for that, moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Carries. Really? At this point? I've been asked, could we take a comfort break? It's 2:11. Let's get right back at 2:15 if we could. Okay, as noted, to make sure I haven't forgotten anyone, CAO Kaler, we approved the report for the sanitary sewer fund. Thank you. I'm moving on to number 3, the report on the agenda regarding the 1480 Seaway Drive. Excellent. So back. The next report on the agenda is the Director of Community Planning and Building Development Permit Application at 1480 Seaway Drive. Do I have a mover seconder for the recommendations? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Grens. Any discussion? Councillor Gore, go ahead.
Yes, thank you to our Director of Planning. I see that there is a request within this for a variance from 15 meters to 6.67 from the natural boundary of the sea. And can you tell me why the variance is being sought since it's just a renovation? I'm sorry if I missed something in the report.
No worries. If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Gore. So the existing house is less than 15 meters from the natural boundary of the sea. And because a bay window is going in and a slight change in the roof peak, the building's slightly closer to the 15 meters than it already is. But the building's already closer than 15 meters. It's like 7 or 8 meters in that ballpark.
You good on that? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Thank you. It carries. The next report on the agenda, I have an in person, Mr. Russell, regarding the Director of Community Planning and Building application to facilitate a street patio eatery on Morison Avenue. Mr. Russell, welcome.
Hello. This presentation is going to cover the sort of broader policy topic of street patios and process, because there's a number of options for council consideration, and I'm not sure if it's clear on what the difference in some of those options are. And as a planner, these are all, and a bureaucrat, these are all very different things, but I know to everyone else, blah, 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 someone does some paperwork and something comes out the other end. And but for us bureaucratic planner people, these are all very distinct processes, and there are some overlaps. So I thought it'd be helpful to kind of provide a bit of background on that and why you're being given all these different choices and options on your agenda. I believe the delegation has spoke out quite eloquently on their specific proposal. So I'll sort of dive in here. So at first I thought the question that council might ask is, well, how many cafes or restaurants or eateries or other things are in the downtown? Google helped mostly, but it did miss a few, and I may have missed a few, but there's approximately 21 within the area, the downtown commercial C3 zone, that could potentially avail themselves of a street patio. Now, our past experiences, we've only been approached one other time by one other cafe restaurant in the downtown. So I don't expect we'll have 21 applications or anything like that, but maybe 4 or 5 in the future. That would be a good guess. So there's sort of 2 different things that council's advancing. The main one for this afternoon's discussion is really what I'm calling the what, and that's the land use regulations. So there's 2 approaches, and a lot of this process and how it's done comes from the provincial government through the Local Government Act. It establishes the framework on how we have to amend these things. So we have the Local Government Act, which ties into the OCP, and that gives us 2 options on how to change the what. And what I mean by the what is permitted within roadways within the city of Parksville. So we have a temporary use permit, that's and we'll go into a little more detail in a second, or we have a land use bylaw, zoning bylaw. What we'll be sort of following up with at a future meeting, so I'll be writing another report and preparing another thing for you to look at, will be the who and how much. And that's sort of that's what the license of occupation that council will be considering at a future meeting within the timeline of either the temporary use permit or zoning bylaw change. It'll happen within that same time frame. But this comes under the legislation of the community charter, and it establishes council's ability to basically sublease or rent or in other ways allow municipal lands to be used. And it's essentially like under kind of contract sort of law. And that's what this license of occupation would be, or if council has us establish a staff administered approach, then it would be under a permit. So this is the who and what, and that's what that other report you'll be seeing at an upcoming council meeting, probably dovetailing with final consideration of these other processes. So this is sort of shows council what's discretionary and what's not. And in this case, really everything's discretionary. It's up to council whether or not they amend the zoning bylaw. It's up to council whether or not they issue a temporary use permit. It's not a requirement, so it's ultimately council's decision. Same with a license of occupation or if an encroachment agreement, either of those approaches, that sort of permission to use city land, that is again a council decision. Also, the adoption of about a 14-page street patio bylaw, that would also be a council decision. If council did adopt that bylaw, then it would provide a detailed framework for staff to be able to issue permits. That's not the approach that we're proposing today, and we'll kind of get into why. So the area that in question, what we're talking about is those at Parksville's kind of unique. Our roads are not unique, but our roads have a TR1 zone, which is different from the adjacent C3 commercial zone. Not every place is like this. Other places, the zone paints right across the road. Everything would have the same zoning as the private property. It was done for very specific reasons. Primarily years ago, there was large tracts of linear land that were, there was concern that they might be put up for sale and developed that weren't necessarily intended for that purpose. And anyways, we ended up with a TR1 zone, and it has some advantages for bylaw compliance and those sorts of things. So we're not proposing to touch that. But what we are, anyways, I'll jump ahead here. So currently on that C3 zone, we have restaurants and cafes. They're permitted under food catering facility. But as soon as you go into the roadway, I don't really see restaurant or whatever. We have things like railways and other exciting things, bus stations. So in order to allow for it, we need to either amend permanently or temporarily the zone that's in place on that section of road. So option one, which we're not recommending, would be to do a one-off temporary use permit, which would just be for this specific patio. It would also have a license of, so the one would allow the use, and the license of occupation would allow the particular party to use that land with conditions. So if this was the option that council was looking to pursue, the OCP supports temporary use permits in the downtown core. This map shows our downtown core sort of in red towards the center. I don't have the mouse here, but anyways, if I had a mouse, you can kind of see the downtown. We're all familiar with it. And then this would be a temporary use permit. So it's attached to the report. It allows the use itself, and then it's a permitted use with strings attached. It's got a bunch of conditions. Those same conditions, and probably even more specific conditions, would also be in the license of occupation. So we'll go into the next approach. One point of omission, I guess, is the map that's in the prepared temporary use permit should look like this, not what is in the temporary use permit. So my apologies to council, but if council was to select that option, I'd request a small change to the resolution to include this map from the Director of Community Planning and Buildings presentation. So this is the process for temporary use permits. It's not a municipal process. It's a process that's spelled out by the province on what we have to do. we have to do a staff report and prepare a permit, which is presented to you today. We have to go ahead with notice. So this would be 2 newspaper ads. And then we would come back to council after the notice is done for issuance. This is a somewhat costly process due to the fact that there's advertising involved. We're looking at probably $600 to $800 per publication, and we have to do 2. And it's also obviously time consuming. So if every street patio in town was to do this, this would be the process. If we don't change the zoning and leave it as it is and just do this as a one-off temporary use permit. I don't know why the background's not showing up. Oh, there we go. So the license of occupation, as I said, there'll be a future staff report and it'll come to council, and it'll come to council at the same time as that process would come to council. Option 2, which is what I'm recommending, is to amend the zoning bylaw. This would be a one-time process, so that in the future, someone would just come in for a license of occupation instead. So instead of going through the 3-step process with the notice in between, application would come before council with a license of occupation. And again, for doing a rezoning, what does the OCP say? Well, it says it's in the downtown core. These are the policies. It talks about, dining and public street markets are supported. So the policies support this type of change in zoning, in my opinion, and it's ultimately council who needs to determine that it's satisfied that direction. And attached to the agenda for later on is the proposed zoning bylaw change, which proposes to add street patio to the TR1 zone with a specific provision that says it shall be permitted directly adjacent to downtown commercial C3 zoned properties, because the TR1 zone goes all throughout the city. And I believe it's the intent to allow street patios directly adjacent downtown commercial zone properties and not in a residential neighborhood, unless I'm mistaken. So that's why that clause is there. And then there's some basic definitions attached with that street patio use. So under this process, it's almost the same as the temporary use permit, but it's a one-time only. So we're already at the staff report council. We have to do the 2 newspaper ads to have the public hearing. And then at the public hearing, council could, although we typically don't, but council could have 3rd reading. And what we're looking into is whether or not 4th reading is also possible. But the timeline for that from the staff report and the council meeting today to the council and public hearing date is the same as the temporary use permit. If we're not able to do 3rd and 4th reading at the same meeting as the public hearing, then it would be at the subsequent council meeting 2 weeks later, essentially. Right. Still the same license of occupation, so I'm not going to bore you with that. And this is option 3. So this would be the zoning. Sorry.
Council Press, do you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Yeah, you're talking about the 24-hour thing. Yeah, it's okay. I heard your thoughts. It was, but it was, I was thinking the same thing. So anyways, we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Option 3, I'm not recommending at this time, but if we had 50 people, 50 different patios looking to set up in town, then this could be an option. So this still would include a zoning bylaw amendment change, as well as the development of a street patio bylaw. And then in this situation, the actual permits would be issued by staff following very specific technical parameters that are spelled out in this probably 14-page bylaw. And that's the reason why most places have a street patio bylaw, because the intent is that staff issue those permits within certain technical parameters. And that's certainly something council could do. I would recommend for timeliness in this particular instance or for this season to not do that at this time. And we can kind of test the waters just using license of occupations and kind of see what demand is. But if council wanted to do that approach, it's certainly something that could be done, or it could even be a blended approach. So the current proposal before council could proceed, say, with the zoning bylaw amendment and the license of occupation. And then in the future, as time permits, this other thing could roll out. But I just don't think demand is going to be quite as high to put the resources into developing that. But again, that's ultimately council's decision. Again, same bylaw, same street patio bylaw and permit to be prepared. And then option 4 was, again, we're not recommending this, which is the status quo or denial, but that's a perfectly fine option if that's what council wants. Again, these are your processes. So that was our recommendation, that the zoning bylaw be amended and that we proceed with preparing a license of occupation. And again, that license of occupation will be very similar to the temporary use permit, but it may provide even more details. It's going to provide details on the rental rate, on when it's due. It is sort of touched on in the financial implications section, but it's not quite cast in stone yet until that's presented to you. And that's my quick and presentation.
So if I can, Director Russell, the option 2, that's included in the recommendations you have here under that particular one. Is it under 2.2 of your recommendations here? Yeah. Yeah. That is correct. Is that, or is just a composite of every one of them and all together equals option 2?
Oh, if I may, so the recommendations presented right under the executive summary in the report is option 2. And then it's just restated. Each option has it stated right beside it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Questions? Go ahead, Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Russell, for all that information. That's wonderful. One question I have is that well, first of all, the steps that you outlined for option 2 do include a public hearing. And I take it that if in fact at that public hearing, there was overwhelming support for this, then one might entertain having 3rd and even 4th reading at that public hearing. Is that correct?
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Beale, 3rd reading for sure could be considered at that meeting, and we're just looking into whether 4th can occur at that same meeting. So we'll be getting back to council on that specific aspect.
CEO Kaler is confirming that 4th is possible at the same time. Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Beale.
So my question is, and you can perhaps tell that I'm certainly very supportive of your recommendation. So I would like to see this move forward. But what I'd like to know is if, in fact, the minimal amount of time, was transpired, how soon could, people such as the Extreme Eatery actually receive the green light for this?
If I may, Chair, through to Councillor, okay, I'm losing my ability to speak today. Through to Councillor Beale, this rezoning process could be completed with the public hearing and 3rd and 4th reading on May 21st, and that would be the same as the date that I anticipate that the license of occupation would also be presented at that meeting for council consideration of authorizing staff to do it. So essentially a day or 2 after that, by the time people have signed the forms and whatever. And then as well as there would probably be a letter that the proponent would be requesting coming out of that meeting for them to pass on to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch. And that's under the assumption that this is like other food primary licenses where a council resolution isn't involved. And that's something the proponent will need to confirm with their LCRB representative.
Go ahead, Councillor Beale.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion at this time to support the recommendations as laid out in our agenda.
if I can just hold off on that because
We'll hold off on that, no problem.
Yeah, thank you, because I hadn't finished. I want everybody to ask questions before I get around to it. I had one here. Yeah, thank you. Before we get to that, I want to get all questions before we go into the motion. Councilor Martin, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To understand how this works, do the people who have these temporary permits, do they pay for that? Do they pay for using the street? What's the cost? I had no idea about it.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair to Councilor Martin. So they would be paying an annual, what's proposed is that they would pay an annual rent to use the space. And it's essentially in the financial section that it's the early anticipated rental amount would be based on the square meter area that they're utilizing. And so that's in the financial section, which so if the zoning bylaw was to proceed, then the license of occupation has an initial license of occupation application fee of $150. And that's spelled out in our fees and charges bylaw. And then the rental amount is actually at council's discretion. But in the financial sections of the staff report, we've provided what we anticipate that would be based on the area. So when that follow-up report comes to council, unless council directs otherwise, then we would be anticipating an annual fee for this particular site of $359.83 per year.
Okay.
359?
Yeah, $359.83 per year.
If I may just clarify, on page 50 of the agenda, there's a couple of financial scenarios, and the 359 is if council wished to consider a reduced rate for a pilot.
Right.
So there's a few other, but that can be decided when the license of occupation comes back to council for decision. That license must be issued by council. So you'll have opportunity to review the terms hopefully on the 21st if this proceeds.
And if I may add to that, and that would be for any license of occupation that council would make that decision on a case by case basis at the time. So right now we're proposing a pilot for this, and that could be for the next one, or council, again, it's on a per license of occupation basis.
That's important to understand here, because I think since we're looking at this as almost treating it like a pilot project, and that we have the fees there, like I would like to suggest that for the first 3 years for the pilot project, that we reduce the rental rate by 50%. Just because recognizing that the applicants are going to come up with, there's going to be building costs for like a street patio or so forth. Like I'm referencing like City of Courtney, they have the street patios and they have the railings and so forth, or they have a tent or something like that. So they're going to have startup costs to do it and to get it up and running. And so I think it would be important that I understand the nature of your fee is based on, the square footage and so forth, and you're doing your due diligence for charging exactly what it is. But I think at this particular course, could we entertain a reduction in fees for a 3-year period of taking that amount and reducing it by 50%.
If I may, Chair, just for clarification. So without the 50% reduction, the annual fee would be $719.
Okay, so
so the fee that the $359.83 is with the 50% discount.
Doesn't include the 50% off. Okay, that's fine, because it was unclear whether that was, before or after type of thing. So instead of 700, we're reducing it to 700 and change, reducing it to 359 for a 3-year period. That shows good faith anyways in supporting our downtown businesses. I appreciate that. Other questions? Councillor Gore?
Yeah, just to make a quick comment. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Russell, thank you for the presentation. It really helps when you gave us the background. I was leaning more towards option 3, so we can just, one time get it done. I really like your recommendation number 4, that we will be talking to PDBA, the Chamber of Commerce, the Tourism Association. So it's really good to get that input from everyone. So yeah, thank you again for your report. Appreciate it.
Councillor Gore or Grant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will also thank our Director of Community Planning and Building for the report that does demonstrate that bylaw zoning matters can be entertaining. The right person. So my question is, if we go with option 2, which is what you're recommending, and that's where I'd lean as well, are we able to meet the deadlines that this particular proponent is looking to hopefully meet?
If I may, Chair, through to Councillor Grenz. So short of any extra council meetings or making the newspaper publish more issues of their newspaper, we are anticipating May 21st.
If I may jump in, Chair. The process is legislated by the province and the notice provisions are the same. So we have to do notice for temporary use permit. I think the challenge or the difference with that is that the applicant has to pay. Whereas with a city initiated, we would be reimbursing them the temporary use permit fees. We still have to do notice either way. And so the timelines are not shorter by just doing it for the one individual. And unfortunately, you can't speed them up because it's a legislative requirement. So you have to do notice a certain period of time before the public hearing. And we cannot make it any sooner than that. It has to be, but if we were to go with either one, it's the same date.
Right, so hearing that it would be May 21st.
Okay, thank you. We do our best to, we like bureaucracy, but we also do our best to cut through the red tape, right?
And I just reflect back on, you know, the initial conversation, we like the street patio option in Parksville, and it's kind of like, so just make it happen. But Mr. Russell just explained all the ramifications, what happens. Councillor or CAO Kaler.
I just want to add that we did also think about waiving the public hearing. And that was something that we were very excited about trying to pursue and recommend to council. But the recent changes to the provincial regulations preclude us from doing that. In order to do that, it actually adds several weeks because you have to do notice before you bring the report to council.
Okay.
And so that's a bit of probably a glitch or an oversight that the province didn't envision with their changing the rules for residential. They inadvertently, perhaps, have tied our hands a little bit on some other things. So we did do our best to try and look at that option. It's not available to us.
But in this particular case, we can have the public hearing and third and fourth reading, as we've now confirmed anyways at that same meeting. So that's key. Okay. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on the public notice, I kind of did some searches, and under section 94 of the community charter, local governments must provide public notice by newspaper publication, public notice posting places. But the BC government legislation also says if newspaper publication is not practicable, local governments may use alternative means such as online advertising, direct mailing, or radio ads. And then we could also, and this is kind of in the future, pass a bylaw that changes the public notice that we have to give. I kind of mentioned that because we see local papers that used to rely on classified ads kind of going by the wayside. And we still have a fantastic publication here that the public obviously looks to for these public notices, but kind of looking down the road a little bit, that might be something that we might want to consider, both on saving the property taxes side of things and on expediting that public notice. Thanks.
Yes, so that was my question was going to be, could public notice be by posting on our own website? No.
And sorry to yell out there.
Who was that voice?
I'm sorry, if I may.
Taylor, yes? Could you answer that, please?
I was quick to jump there because we are also frustrated by some of the timeline sometimes. As Councillor Wood mentioned, we would have to have a bylaw in place, which we actually had on our work plan to do last year, but our staff were fully redeployed doing provincial mandated things. And we will no longer really be having very many public hearings. So we bumped it down our list. It is certainly something that council could direct staff to do in the work plan for next year, to not advertise in the public paper. But right now, because we have a public paper and it is practicable, has a legal definition that if it's possible, you do it, basically. So in the future, if we are going to be having public hearings, it will not be on the residential side, which is 99.9% of our current public hearings. But we could look at a bylaw that in the off chance we are doing a public hearing, we could do notice in a different manner, but that would be way more time than what we currently want for this process.
Okay, understood. It may be coming, but as it is right now, again. Counselor Grant, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not sure if it's a comment or question, but when we're looking at the setting of fees around this, I see in the report that we're looking at sort of a cost for a parking space. But I wonder if either immediately or in the longer term, we should also consider the cost of retail space or leasing a space relative to, because that would be probably a higher per square meter price. And we don't necessarily want to disadvantage people that are paying a higher price for their patio space.
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Gren. So this would be for existing businesses directly adjacent to them. I didn't have time to, because the way that different places calculate their fees where they do have street patio bylaws is literally all over the map. But what's proposed, the pre-discount amount is very much in line with what the majority of other local governments are charging for those kind of spaces, comparable. But that certainly, it's not set in stone with the license of occupation. So council can certainly look at each proposal on a case-by-case basis. But I will say that the license of occupation that's prepared will probably form a sort of template that future applicants can kind of anticipate. It's probably something like that. But it can be sort of customized or tweaked on a case-by-case basis as those applications come forward. So nothing's locked in. It really, this fee is for, would be per council's resolution today, I believe, for the next 3 years was what was mentioned. But it's not beyond that. Council can change things.
Right. Councillor Martin.
What it is about me, I'm just thinking all the time with this. I think it's a wonderful idea, and thank you, Mr. Russell, for doing all this. And it's to me a good idea to do a 3-year plan. Walk before you run. You'll learn about what works and doesn't work. And then we're going to have a really nice addition to our downtown core, and it will expand down the road. And so if we do it right to start with, then we'll have a good template. So thank you very much. And we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Russell? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Russell. Do I have a mover, a seconder for the recommendations as noted? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Grant. Any further discussion? Councillor Martin, did you put up your hand for further discussion? Oh, okay. You were just waving. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Thank you. Now, bylaws, we have 2 readings in advance to public hearing for the Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 2000.154. I move or second for the recommendations as noted. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Beal. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Carries. We have bylaws for a 3rd reading. We have Plan Parksville Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 1492.9. Text amendment to shopping center commercial at 810, 814, 818, 822, 826, 830, and 834 Island Highway West. Do I move or second for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wood, second by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? Councillor Gort?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank the public who came out to the public hearing, those who have written us letters, petitions. I appreciate when people have their voices heard. At the same time, I do recognize the importance of this development in revitalizing the Wembley Mall area. I have been in opposition to this, as the mayor and the council are aware, primarily based on the traffic issues in the area. And this is what we heard loud and clear, even from the public. I did not really hear opposition on any other issue other than the safety and just the increasing amount of traffic that is already on the roads, especially in the church and Wembley Road. At this time, I do want to bring to attention to council a couple of documents that I was able to find. A survey that was done by the RDN not that long ago mentioned that the Sparksville-Qualicum Links Road is more used by the public than the Top Bridge Park. And second, I want to bring to council attention is the French Creek Transportation Plan. In that plan specifically, it talks about how the Wembley stretch is quite unsafe, honestly, for the pedestrians and the cyclists. It's a major, as we know, bike route that people use. It's important for the active transportation. And I was underwhelmed not to see that being reflected in our own transportation master plan. So without a plan in place to address the safety concerns of the current residents and honestly the future residents, I really fear for their safety. We want young families to move into these apartments and condos, but how are these kids safely going to walk to the elementary school or bike to the playgrounds? So that's my biggest concern. So for that reason, I cannot support this moving forward. However, I would like to make a motion later on, but I want to hear other council members first. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Wood.
Thank you. I'm the mover with this. I think I was right.
you
I actually moved for discussion because we had a lot of concerns about traffic, and I would like to see us look at this at a later date, because I'd like to see what the traffic is going to do with the current development that's already there, and then do a more fulsome traffic study to see how the next development would impact the traffic there. So I just wanted to add my comments, even though I'm the mover. Thank you.
If I can just, Director of Planning is here in the room anyways, would that not be mandatory anyways after for any other development that would have to do a traffic impact study? Would that not just normally happen anyways, Mr. Russell?
If I may, Chair, a future rezoning application, it would be expected that it would do a traffic impact assessment.
Sure. And then, so obviously that traffic impact assessment would reflect the values at that time. Sure. So that would be happening regardless. Yeah. Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my understanding is that this particular motion is to do with the OCP amendment, which would be adjusted so that there could be consideration for residential on this property as well. Previously, it was only for commercial until such time as there was greater density in the downtown area. And our staff has determined that that target, let's say not a hard target, but nonetheless, there has been increased development of residential in the downtown area so that exclusion is no longer needed for this particular area. And for that, I am in favor of that, and I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Grant, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. I'm on the same page as regards the OCP amendment. Right now, this is the permitted use is retail only, and anytime I'm always going to be, I think, for residential above retail as opposed to strip mall. I've said that before. Strip malls, I think, are a thing of the past, and if we have opportunity to put housing above development, that is, I think I'd go with that 9 times out of 10.
And I think the applicant has definitely indicated that he feels that that is the best use, land utilization. in this particular case, residential over top of commercial, you have your clientele basically living upstairs. So as far as market success, I think you're in a better position to proceed with developments, which are always risky. So I agree 100%. Any other questions, comments? Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to add that further to that, this motion that we're considering is for the entire property. This is not about the subzone, but it's for the whole property as to whether or not there could be residential in, subsequent development. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
Yep.
I too am concerned about traffic. I think that there could be solutions to that, et cetera. But this specific motion is about whether or not we could introduce residential development to this area.
100%. Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, go ahead. Sure.
Yes, thank you. So no, I understand that. Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Beal. The comments and the concerns that I have are kind of tied to the second part when we are doing the zoning amendment as well from 12A to 12B. At this time, I do want to mention again, when we talk about working together, and we received a letter from the RDN about the traffic issues in this area. And our strategic goal, actually, the 6.2 about the recreation amenities, we say that we will support the development of and upgrades to regional amenities that benefit Parksville residents and to build on the goals of existing master plans and needs assessment studies. So there is an opportunity for us to kind of work with the RDN on this. I do want to see residential. Don't get me wrong. And I think a lot of the public were not against having residential in the area. But the opposition to my opposition to this is without a plan to manage the traffic, I don't want to blindly go ahead, build more housing and hope that the infrastructure and the amenities will catch up when the needs, such a need arises in the future. And I do happen to at the same time maybe spend too much time on this document, looked at some of the bicycle and the pedestrian collisions in Parksville. And I wasn't surprised to see that in the last few years, a couple of them have been in that area, in the same area. So again, out of respect for the people who came out, voiced their opinions, and became a part of this democratic process, if I have a seconder, I would like to move that we defer the third reading of this application and that council direct staff to work with the regional district of Nanaimo to prepare a plan outlining how the proposed development aligns with the regional infrastructure and connectivity initiatives, specifically the Parksville Qualicum Beach Link corridor, and report back to council. If I have somebody who would second that.
At third reading, that is clearly not fair to the proponent in this particular case, in my opinion. So. Yes.
Mayor, with a motion on the floor, I think there'd be a motion to defer would be appropriate. I don't know about a motion to defer plus an amendment. We could ask our CAO what she would recommend.
CAO Kaler?
If I may, so a motion to defer is not debatable. So I think it's more fair to the table that there not be anything other than the motion to defer. So adding other items that really council should be debating should be left off that motion, in my opinion.
So you're left with just a motion to defer.
Thank you. So it could say that until staff comes back with a report on my ask.
If I may, again, anything that has to be debatable. So what would staff be putting in the report, I think would be my question. So I would say it's really at the chair's discretion, but I would say that a motion to defer is usually simply a motion to defer to a particular time. A motion to refer could provide some more information, but again, I would just caution that anything that should be debated and have full discussion at the council table shouldn't be part of a motion to defer, in my opinion.
A motion to defer. Just see if you get a seconder for a motion to defer. to defer to a different date, you would say to another date.
So if I may, I'm seeing a couple of maybe puzzled faces. So just to clarify, a motion to refer would be to refer back to staff, and it would probably give us a quick idea of why or what you want us to come back with. But it shouldn't really be something that requires your debate as a council to give us direction. So staff have already provided staff reports on this item. And anything that we bring forward new would require another public hearing. So there's some technical issues, I think, around doing anything more in depth than just a simple motion to either refer back to staff, refer to a future meeting, or defer. So neither of those are debatable. And so that's my concern, is that council at this point has received the technical information from staff, has had a public hearing. And so anything other than a simple motion to defer, I think, puts us in a position where we're most likely looking for rescinding third and reverting back to the public hearing stage, coming back to council with information that we don't know exactly what it is you want at this point. And so my concern is having, losing an opportunity for council to debate by deferring, if that makes sense, or even referring, because again, we're not really sure what you would be referring it back to staff
Right.
for.
Right. And in this particular case, the proponent has already done the traffic safety study. We've done the public hearing. Now it's up to us to make a decision whether to approve it or not to go back to staff for another recommendation to suggest that we have to confer with the RDN district regarding French Creek, to confer with that. I mean, that's a whole different study that would take possibly years. So I understand what you're trying to say. You're not happy with it, but at the same time, the proponent has done everything necessary to get this to the next stage. So it's an unwise choice. We're here to make a decision today. We either approve this or we don't. So I won't hear the deferment. All those in favor of the recommended motion for plan amendment bylaw 2025 number 1492.9 be read a third time. All those in favor? Those opposed? Councillor Gore is opposed. Thank you. Bylaws under third reading, zoning and development amendment bylaw 2025 number 2000.152, text amendment to comprehensive development CD 12 at 810, 814, 818, 822, 826, 830, and 834 Island Highway West. Right, mover and seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Beal, second by Councillor Grams. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Good. Go ahead. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
My elbow was a little creaky. It just needs a little, get up there a little bit faster. Pardon
Little
me.
olive oil.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. I'd like to say that I will be supporting this, although I do have and did have and continue to have some reservations, particularly with the concerns around traffic. However, I also do appreciate that any development of this nature will take some time for it to get started, for it to move forward, and other development that's going on in the area will have been completed by that time, and all those trucks that are parked along the side of the road will be gone. I would also hope that, given that the owner of this property owns the whole area of Wembley Mall, that hopefully that there would be adequate parking on site for construction workers, so that that would minimize some of that impact along the roads. I also appreciate that when down the road, no pun intended, there is further development at the other end of this property, that at that time Stanhope Road will be further developed and so on. So I realize that all of this is looking down the road and that beyond that, there are other future road allowances. I totally agree with Councillor Gore that at some point this needs to involve some communication, working together with the RDN, with the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure to see what solutions can be put in place for this area and keep an eye on that. I think that there can and must be solutions to traffic problems when and if they do occur. And it's a little bit hard to judge at this point in time. So I will, but I do think it's solvable. I think that good minds can be put to this and good planning. And I think something like that can be solvable down the road. So for all of those reasons, I will, with some reluctance, be supporting this.
Yes, and I too will be supporting this for the basic reason is that the developer, the owner of this property of the Wembley Mall, has also shone a light on the fact of what the future looks like for the different phased approaches to improving the rest of the property, which will inevitably get down to the other end where it's going to be looking at the traffic at that time. But at the same time, we're looking at this one, this application here in front of us right now, which is a good first start. All those in favor? Those opposed? 2, 3. All those in favor again? Okay, that carries. Thank you. That is opposed by Councillor Fraz, Councillor Gower, and Councillor Wood. Thank you. Notice of motion. There's one notice of motion on the agenda. Councillor Wood regarding UBCM Next Generation 911 Fund Grant application. This motion has provided on the agenda in lieu of notice, so council may hear it. Councillor Wood, could you read out your recommendation, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Recommendation that council support UBCM 2025 Next Generation 911 application by the Parksville Volunteer Fire Department for funding for mobile data terminal and CAD deployment renewal in the amount of $88,650. And number 2, that council support the mobile data terminal and CAD deployment renewal project and commits to provide overall grant management to the project.
That's moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Fraz. Any discussion? Discussion, Councillor Gord.
Thank you. I want to thank the councillor for bringing this forward. Typically, we hear these reports, we get these reports from the staff, but I want to thank him for doing the research and finding these monies, which I think will be well utilized. I did some research on the NG 911. I think with GIS being incorporated into the system, this will help our first responders to exactly pinpoint the callers. So it's really good. I'm fully supportive. Again, thank you for bringing this forward.
Councillor Wood, go ahead.
I want to, through yourself, Mayor, to Councillor Gore, I have to really pass on all the thanks to the staff on this one. I did very exceptionally little work on this one, but thank you anyways.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Gore.
Thank you. I know you want to call the question. Thank you. Staff, I would just go on the UBCM website and realized that the last date to apply was April 11th, but I'm hoping we're still able to get it in time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. No other notices of motion. I'll ask for liaison reports now. Oh, sorry, Councillor Beal. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of liaison reports. First of all, I'd like to start with the Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to share congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce on their number of recent accomplishments. I attended an AGM and Councillor Grenz was there as well. One item to celebrate is that they now have a full board. So their recent additions to the board, and so that's very good news. Also, they recently received a grant, which is allowing them to hire a new executive director, so that will be coming along soon. They've also now have an MOU with Bylaws. So that is also a bit of good news for the chamber. And Delvey, which is the wholly owned subsidiary of the chamber, has also now got agreements with some other significant partners. So all of that is good news for the chamber, and I wish them well. Any
Thank you.
questions about that? No? Okay, thank you. Regarding the Arts Council, you may have heard that Beach Fest Rocks is the new name for the annual 3-day musical event in August. And although the people may or may not be aware that the Arts Council and the MAC in particular is plays a significant role in this festival. So that's why I bring that up here. Also, their website provides lots of information about offerings and events, so please have a look if there's anything that you'd like to learn about. And the art garden at the MAC, which is outside beside the MAC, was recently featured on Czech TV, so you can find that online if you haven't had a chance to see that. And that was filmed during the Easter egg extravaganza that was recently held there, and it's really quite a delight to see and to learn more about what they can do there. Also, please watch for some fundraising campaign that will be coming along to make needed improvements to this aging historic building. And there will be bringing a delegation forward to council to share information about that. No question?
If I could just add to that,
Yeah.
the art, Councillor Beal, if I may, the art garden at the MAC. Anyway, so they have a piano out the back, and there's an individual that attends inclusion there, and he plays the piano, and he is absolutely amazing. And he has a crowd around him. It is just kind of spontaneous, but and that's the idea of a piano in the garden, right? Anyway, so if you're fortunate enough to be visiting the garden, you may be serenaded by piano in the background. Anyways, it's just amazing to be there. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's awesome. I wasn't aware that the piano's out. I mean, of course, they had to wait for good weather before
Yes,
that's
right.
out.
Yeah.
All right. And the advisory design panel, I attended a recent inaugural orientation meeting for the newly formed or reformed advising design panel. There's a mix of new and returning members, which promises to be a valuable contribution to our city and the planning department. And the ADP, for those who don't know, it focuses on the exterior presentation and landscaping elements of proposed developments and providing feedback and recommendations to proponents. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Parksville and District Historical Society is a very active group. What they had was a volunteer luncheon organized by board member Pam Foster on April 2nd for the 24 gardeners who tirelessly keep the grounds looking beautiful. A peaceful place to enjoy before the busy summer comes. It's already going to be starting. A manager has been hired, Sarah Ronald, for May 1st, and she will be hiring a student, which is covered. There's assistance for that. I forget what they call it, but there is assistance for a student to be hired. So there will be a student. Also, they're celebrating Knox Church 100th anniversary, June 8th, with an outdoor church service and a picnic afterwards. So that Seaway Church said that's got 100 years. So it's quite something, you know. And then there'll be, this will help with the fundraiser for the Heritage Church Fund. By the way, church rental is $500 per day now and $900 for 2 days. So a lot weddings come up and this sort of thing. It's really quite neat. There's a new stage built and donated by Kingfisher, which is a local foundation. So there's a new stage for music, and there will be 3 music events planned in July on Thursdays. They're looking at Beach Fest and all the things that are going on, and that's what they're doing on Thursdays. 3 Thursdays in July with musical events. I'll have exact dates closer, but that's what I have to say with the museum. Thank you.
Councilor Martin, if I can ask a question, constituent asked me, are they going to do, they had a market garden at the museum, 1 day a week occasionally last in the past.
It
Are
hasn't
they
come
planning
up.
that again or not?
No, they haven't come up with
Okay.
that, not in the meeting that I missed the meeting in March, but I did read the minutes.
Okay, someone was just
And-
asking
yeah.
if that was going to happen.
Yeah, no, not
Okay.
that I know of.
Okay.
They can only, it's, anyway, this is what I have for now. Yeah.
Good.
But there'll be another, I can be in 2 weeks, I can have another notice if I'll ask about the.
Yeah,
market
just the
garden.
next time. It's just a question I'm asking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Could I have a motion for adjournment? Councilor Wood, second by Councilor Grant. All those in favor? Adam, we did it.